My place in tech changes every day, but I don't fear the future because I'm with the leader, Pluralsight. Their online learning platform has the hands-on, expert-led courses I need to master new tech skills and create bigger impacts, so I can learn quickly and stay ahead. With Pluralsight, I don't fear what's next. I embrace it. Tap in at pluralsight.com and see for yourself.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
He's retired from the Las Vegas Metro Police Department. He was on scene for the room entry, the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history. He also supervised an officer-involved shooting not long after that. He's here to talk about all that and more. Welcome to the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. In the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, we are joined by special guests talking about their experiences, the realities of investigating crimes, plus those who have experienced horrendous trauma. Police, first responders, military, and victims of crime share their stories. Hi, I'm John J. Wiley. In addition to being a broadcaster, I'm also a retired police sergeant. Be sure to check out our website, letradio.com, and also like us on Facebook. Search for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. One of your top destinations on the internet should be letradioshow.com. You'll find every episode of the show as a free podcast after airing on radio. You'll also find great blog articles, op-ed articles, and much more, all at letradioshow.com. That's letradioshow.com. Don't forget, it's all free at letradioshow.com. Conte is from Las Vegas, Nevada. We have retired Las Vegas, Nevada Metro Police Department Captain Josh Bitsko on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Josh is going to talk about the Mandalay Bay shooting, one of the worst incidents of mass shootings in American history, and being on scene supervising a police-involved shooting a little bit later afterwards. Josh, before we get started in the conversation, let me say this. Thank you for your service, and thanks for being a guest on the show. Both very much appreciated.
Well, I appreciate you having me. Like I said, it's always my goal to get the message out and, share some of my experiences in hopes that it can help other law enforcement officers around the country.
How long have you been retired now?
I retired in February of 24, so about a year and a half, maybe a little more than that.
So, by the way, you are a rookie when it comes to retirement, because I got hurt and retired young, and I was 33, so that was 1992 when I retired. So that's probably before you even started policing, isn't it?
Well, I hired on when I was 18. So I hired on as a cadet right out of high school and then went straight into the academy at 21. So like I said, I did 24 years, but I retired and started my company, and this is basically all I've ever done.
By the way, Josh wrote a book called The Courage to Live. You can find it on Amazon, and his website is bitskoconsulting.com. That's BITSKO consulting.com. Before we get into details of your story, did you find transitioning from police work into civilian work to be challenging, or a challenging transition for you?
Absolutely. I mean, all I ever knew was being a police officer, and it's all I ever wanted to be. So, I was excited to retire and, start this new challenge, but there's a lot of changes. I mean, I definitely don't miss being, the politics of being a captain on a major agency. I still miss being a cop.
Yeah.
I still miss wearing the uniform and talking to people, right?
Well, and I don't understand what captains do. It's a different. Best example I can give is when I went from police officer to sergeant. I didn't realize all that came along with that position, and it was a different aspect of policing. And we had first level management, which I never had to deal with before. So there's all kinds of changes. I'm sure there are some big changes for you as a captain, but I want to talk about your career. You spent part of that in patrol, as where most people start, and then you gravitated towards, I guess it was SWAT?
It was canine. So I spent most of my time, was patrol, canine handler, canine sergeant, ran our training program. You know, when I was a new officer, I always thought I wanted to be like a detective or undercover. I realized I was terrible at that, and I was going to get myself or someone else hurt because I just could not go out there and basically, you know, act like somebody I wasn't. I just carried myself like a cop, so I decided I just wanted to be in uniform. So most of the jobs that I had over the course of my career was more patrol-oriented, like canine or canine handler, patrol sergeant, patrol lieutenant, bureau commander as a captain at an area command. Like everything that I did was always geared towards patrol because I loved that, and the stuff that I thought I wanted to do turned out to not work for me.
I'm glad you brought about the undercover. By the way, I was a great narcotics detective when it came to surveillance. I was lousy at undercover work, and there's a huge difference between the two. And I'm also a big dog person, but the main reason why I never got into canine, number one, I'm not speaking for all agencies, but my agency, I was not a golden boy. I was not one of those chosen few that got the choice assignments. Number two, with my luck, I get a dog that bark nonstop in my ear. And I have Rottweilers now. We love the breed, but they're pretty quiet. And that seemed to suit my mood fine. How did you find the transition to canine work?
Well, it was funny because I just tested for our narcotics section. It's funny you mentioned that. And I had somebody in the section that I trusted came to me and was like, hey, you know, you've come out, you've ridden with us, you've done work with us, and I just don't know if it's a good fit. And I appreciated the candor. So then I was patrol, and, you know, I'm always getting info pursuits, and I ended up walking with a canine handler to be his backup officer. We ended up finding a suspect hiding in a bush, and I was hooked. So I took the test. That's the good thing about being on a big agency is, you know, we had 22 canine handlers at Las Vegas Metro. So, you know, I took the test, made it into canine, and it was like a completely different world, a completely different job. You know, you're still a cop, you're still patrol, but you have now this animal that you're responsible for 24/7, 365. And, you know, just the dynamic of working with a dog, living with a dog, it turned out to be very, it was different, but I loved it. I loved every minute of it. It was exciting. It was fun. It was different every day. And it hooked me.
A lot of people don't understand, and Hollywood's a big part of this, but the whole partner aspect, there's certain people you gravitate to, you work with, you go through life and death situations together with, you develop a bond with, and you can't help but do that with dogs, I would imagine. And what a lot of people don't realize is that dog is also a member of the family. And then as a partner, that when you go home, most agencies, they go home with you too. Was that the situation with you?
Yeah, so I worked several different patrol dogs in my time in canine, and everyone was a little different. But yeah, they're not like horses that can be in a stable and then you go take them out. I understand there's still a relationship with horses and their riders, but you know, dogs are very social animals. So I would come home and he was definitely a member of the family. A member of the family I always had to worry about, like biting the UPS guy if he stepped onto our property, but nonetheless a member of the family. And so that bond there, I spent more time with my canine partner than my kids or my wife. And it's just the nature of it, of you do build a bond because this dog learned to trust me and I learned to trust him. And I mean, he was there to keep myself, my partners, the community safe, and I really had to build that trust with him, and that just builds a bond that, you know, I've loved dogs my whole life. I hunted, so I hunted with dogs, but at the same time, you know, when you're out there looking for somebody with a gun and you have to trust this animal with your life, and he proves that you can, it just builds it's very undescribable, the bond that I had with all of my canine partners, but especially my last one, Loki. He was a special dog.
And what a lot of people also don't realize is that when they retire, they usually retire to their handler, and they're part of the family. It's like you can't get rid of that partnership, number one, but you can't get rid of the family dynamic. Was that the situation with you?
Yeah, so Loki retired. He was about 11. I promoted to lieutenant out of canine, and so he retired with me. And it was amazing to have him full-time as a pet, and also kind of difficult. He would get mad because I would get in uniform and go to work without him.
Right.
And although his body wasn't capable of doing the job, his mind still wanted to do the job. So, you know, he would whine or bark or, you know, bug my kids because, you know, where'd Dad go? He went to work without me. Why is this happening? So I would spend a lot of time with with him, walking him and throwing balls. I'd even sneak into trainings and let him bite the decoys, the people in the bite suits, just so he could still feel like he was working. Retirement's not just hard for us; it's hard for the dogs.
I was going to say that. I know a lot of humans that struggle with that, and you're talking to one of them right now. It took quite a while for me to develop my life after police work, but here's when you said something that really resonated. You said that the body's not able, but the mind still wants to, and that's where I found myself for a long period of time. We're talking about Josh Bitsko. He's a retired Las Vegas Metro Police captain. He's authored the book, The Courage to Live, and his website is bitskoconsulting.com. That's BITSKO consulting.com. This is the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. When we return, we'll talk about Mandalay Bay, the worst mass shooting in U.S. history. He was on scene. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. There's a couple ways you can stay in touch and keep informed of what's going on with the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Number one, go to our website, letradio.com. Sign up for our email newsletter. It's real easy to find. I promise we don't spam you. I send out about one email every 2 weeks or so. And there's also a feature called broadcast channels on our Facebook page where we send messages directly to your inbox, directly to your messenger. Real easy to sign up for. Make sure you like or follow the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. And up top, you'll see broadcast channels, one for free podcast versions of the radio show, another one top post of the day. So you too can stay informed quickly, easily, and best of all, like always, free. Return conversation with Josh Bitsko, retired Las Vegas Metro Police Captain. He is author of the book, Courage to Live. His website is bitskoconsulting.com. That's BITSKO consulting.com. Thanks for your service, Josh, and thanks for talking about some things from your service that really are not easy to talk about. I've had a couple of guests on the show talking about the Mandalay Bay shooting. You were on scene, and I believe, if I was correct, my memory is correct, which it often is not at this advanced stage, you were a K-9 sergeant, and you're part of the entry team that went into the room. Am I wrong?
No, that is correct.
And that's the one. Here's my major complain about police work, and it's not just the media, but that's what I'm going to say. They usually put the cops' actions first. They don't put the 150 decisions that the bad guy made beforehand first that could have prevented all this. But I really get a case of you-know-what's when so-called tactical experts have to mouth off online, well, if I was there, I'd have done this. And my answer to that is usually, you weren't there, so shut your pie hole. And
so what happens is generally, people, they think they know what they would do in any kind of given situation, especially stressful ones. But truly, you can train, you can prepare, but you don't know how you're emotionally going to handle something until you're in that situation.
Right. And that's the kind of situation that police work, at least for me, they train you for every possible contingent. But I don't think anybody could imagine that. And there was no case scenario before that where you had a guy, if my memory is correct, he had multiple rifles, and he was shooting from way up in the Mandalay Bay Hotel at a music festival below.
Yeah, that's correct. He went up to the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay. He'd taken about a week to assemble an arsenal of 23 weapons inside the room. He actually had two rooms, 135 and 134. And once he got all the weapons up there, prepared the room how he wanted it set up, put cameras out front to see our response so he could see the police response to his room, and then broke out two windows and began shooting down into the crowd with fully automatic fire because he had bump stocks, which is an aftermarket stock that can go on semi-automatic rifles, and it replicates fully automatic fire. So he was able to, he had quite the arsenal, intense firepower, and shoot into a crowd of 22,000 people across Las Vegas Boulevard at a country concert. He killed 58 people that night. 2 have since died from their injuries. 413 people shot or hit with frag, and over 850 injuries, all from this one person's actions.
And we look at this scenario and say, the police should have known. Hindsight's 20/20. You didn't know how many rifles he had when you first responded, did you?
No, I mean, that's the thing is we have to respond within seconds to what it took, months and months of somebody to plan. That's why it's so important to have the proper mindset in law enforcement. It's one of the things that I train now around the country teaching law enforcement is how to develop that proper mindset to respond in the best way possible when you don't have the time to have a plan. I mean, you can have a quick and down and dirty plan because of your training and what's unfolding in front of you, but we have to have the right mindset to be able to act courageously, act tactically, and do the job that we need to do.
Before we get into your role in a scene, when you first get the call that you are alerted to this situation, was there anything that's prepared you mentally for what you're going to encounter?
So the call was, I heard on the radio automatic gunfire. I listened to all the radio channels at once because in K-9 you just go to, the exciting things or the, foot pursuits, vehicle pursuits. So I listened to all the channels at once because I could do that on my radio, and I heard automatic gunfire. And, prior to this, I'd done active shooter training. I mean, we're a large agency, and Las Vegas is Sin City. So we were always prepared for some sort of attack. But when you think of active shooter, you think somebody going through a crowd randomly shooting somebody, but this was more of a barricaded sniper up in a room shooting down into the crowd, and that wasn't something I specifically had trained for. We had to kind of roll with the punches of what was unfolding in front of us.
And what was your role when you got there?
So when I arrived, it was, pure chaos. Like, you had 51 officers working the concert already in an overtime capacity. There was some leadership at the concert. But when we responded, initially, the first 6-7 minutes, we thought the shooter was in the concert grounds because of the confusion, because of, in Las Vegas, the rounds, the sound of the gunfire echoes off all the buildings around. So you can't pinpoint based on sound alone where the shooting's coming from. And then there's also that, what does an active shooter look like? We all have what we've trained and what we know on an active shooter. And then this was a little different. So trying to get your mind around what's unfolding. So I responded to the Mandalay Bay because as I was getting closer, officers down on scene were able to identify where the shooting was coming from. Plus, inside the Mandalay Bay, they had called our dispatch and said, we have somebody in a room on the 32nd floor firing a gun. So we were able to put all that together. And so I arrived at the Mandalay Bay. There's an aquarium attached to it and then convention space. So I arrived there. I have a team of a couple detectives that just showed up trying to help. I had one other K-9 handler with me, myself, and we have to make our way up to the suspect's room to try and stop the rampage that was happening.
There's an old saying that comes to mind is you go to war with the army you have, not the army you want. And that really plays true police work. I'm sure that you wanted to have a different team, and I'm not saying anything negative about those, but you got to go. You got to respond with the team you got.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen, in a perfect world, I'd have a fully outfitted SWAT team, all my K-9 handlers, and all of our SWAT gear, because our K-9 works with our SWAT team. I've been to SWAT school. I had all the gear. But at the end of the day, the team that I did have, they're not the people that I worked with. They're not the people that I trained with. But what I did know about them is they showed up ready to have an impact.
Right.
And that was valuable to me as well.
And by the way, and I've said this many times, so this is not new, there were Baltimore police that refused to back me up because they said, and they quote, you track too many guns. And there were tiny female officers that when I was in a battle for my life, they came in and grabbed a hand. The most important thing was showing up, if you ask me.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I want somebody with the mindset to show up, do their job. Doesn't matter if it's dangerous. It doesn't mean it doesn't have an impact on you. Doesn't mean you're not feeling fear or anxiety or all the emotions that come along with any kind of critical incident. But having the willingness to show up and do the job, that was the most important thing that anybody could take to this kind of event.
So we're talking with Josh Bitsko. Josh is retired Las Vegas Metro Police Department captain. We'll talk about that aspect of his career, but he's also author of the book Courage to Live, and his website, and you can find the book on Amazon. His website is Bitsko Consulting. That's Bitsko Consulting.com. This is the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, and we return our conversation with Josh. We're going to talk more about Mandalay Bay, room entry, what they discovered, what they did afterwards, and then if time time permits, we'll get into the supervising the officer-involved shooting that occurred shortly after. Of all the radio stations in the United States, there are no other shows like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. And on Facebook, there's only one official page. Do a search on Facebook for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, and be sure to like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. Don't go anywhere. This Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show will be right back.
How would you like a free ebook on tips to improve your health? We're talking about tips you can use for free to add years to your life and possibly improve the quality of your years. Best of all, the ebook is free to download at lethealthy.com. When we say free, we mean free. No credit card, no sales funnels, none of that stuff. So you can download the free ebook to improve your physical health, all while preserving your financial health. Get the ebook for free today at lethealthy.com. That's at lethealthy.com. Again, the website is lethealthy.com.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance supervisor at a manufacturing facility, he knows keeping the line up and running is a top priority. That's why he chooses Grainger. Because when a drive belt gets damaged, Grainger makes it easy to find the exact specs for the replacement product he needs. And next-day delivery helps ensure he'll have everything in place and running like clockwork. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Return to conversation with Josh Bitsko on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Josh is retired Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department in Nevada police captain. He's author of the book, The Courage to Live, which you can find on Amazon. And his website is bitskoconsulting.com. It's BITSKO consulting.com. Back to our conversation. You were, I believe, if my memory is correct, a sergeant, K-9 SWAT sergeant, and you arrived at Mandalay Bay Hotel, and then you were making your way up to the 32nd floor where the shooter was. Am I wrong?
No, you were right. We arrived at the Mandalay Bay, threw on our gear, had a couple detectives, a K-9 handler, and myself, and we make entry through the Shark Reef. Now, if you imagine the size of these places here in Las Vegas, you have, this giant aquarium, you have a couple 100,000 square feet of convention space, and then a giant casino floor that we have to navigate to make our way to the elevators to get up to the suspect's room. So just the size of these places can be environmentally an obstacle that we have to navigate. So we have our team and we make our way through, we get to the casino floor. Before I go up to the room, I stop at a security podium where there is a security officer, and now I had 3 detectives, a K-9 handler, and myself at this point. I grab one of my detectives and grab the security officer, and I said, I need you to go to the surveillance room and get me intel, because at the onset of any of these events through the chaos, intel is one of the things that we don't have a lot of. Right? I know the shooting, I know the chaos outside, but I want to know, is the suspect still in the room? Are there multiple suspects? Is there someone somewhere else in the Mandalay Bay that's shooting? So, the good thing about Las Vegas is there are cameras everywhere.
And that's the good thing. So you get that information you need. When you were, I'm thinking right now, I'm getting a heart-pounding situation. Look, there are bad calls that we go on, and my mind automatically starts thinking, okay, this is what I'm trained to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. But you get this really unique calls where you don't know what to do. And was your mind going through the worst case scenario when you're approaching the room?
Well, yeah, for me, it was because I was in a leadership position, because I was a sergeant, I didn't want to make the wrong decision and get somebody killed. Right. I would say that was the main emotion that I was feeling in that moment, is I knew I had to make 100 decisions based on what was unfolding in front of me. This didn't fit the training that I had done in the past. I mean, it was similar. You had somebody actively killing people, and I've been on hundreds of barricades at this point. But as far as the complexity and the gravity of this situation, I mean, it was heavy. And I'll tell you, even sending that, so when I sent that one detective with security, and most security, there's not a lot of security that's armed in Las Vegas. I mean, there's now after this incident, but I remember his partner going, hey, I'll go with him. And I did a quick count of the people on my team. I'm like, no, he has to go alone. And that was one of those first decisions that, like we're talking about. It's like, I'm sending this cop with an unarmed security officer through the casino floor to surveillance when I don't know if the suspect's out of the room, if the suspect's still in the room. He just stopped shooting at this point. And I remember thinking, man, I hope that guy doesn't die. because I didn't want to make the wrong call and get somebody killed.
Yeah, I get that 150%. And unfortunately, I never did. I had officers that were injured, and that weighs on at least guys like me heavily. And you know, I don't know how to say this, Josh. It's you're going to send someone in. You've got to send someone in. And usually it was me. I usually did something because I didn't feel comfortable, and time was not in my favor. I just went in and said, "You come with me. We're going to and follow my lead." And that's really all the prep time we had. When you were approaching the door, what was your mindset like then? What do we do? What's going on?
So when we make our way up to the suspect's floor, again, we have to take the elevators up to the 29th floor, take the stairwell up to the 32nd floor.
Dude, were you praying like a maniac on the elevator? Because I rarely ever prayed when I was policing, but usually it was in a car heading to police jobs or raids or something I knew was hairy to begin with. But I can't imagine that elevator ride.
Yeah, I mean, well, I was still, the good thing about being a leader is it distracted giving people their jobs. I mean, there were times that I felt, fear and the gravity and like, this is intense, this is an intense situation, but it was more, hey, we're going to get there. You're going to be, I'll be number one because I have a rifle and the plates. You're going to be number two. You're going to be number three. You're going to be my breacher. You're going to be this. So, the action helped because it wasn't just sitting there in silence on an elevator ride, but getting up there, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of parts of this that were very heavy.
And then you make your way from the elevator down the hallway to his rooms, and that had to be. Were you staging at that point for so people can visualize? Were you staging where you have a line of officers?
So, I go down to the 31st floor. I meet up with one SWAT officer where he had a team of officers. We go down the hallway, and there's a stairwell right next to the suspect's room to go up to the 32nd floor. So we take that stairwell up where we encounter that the suspect had taken an L bracket to screw that door shut to prevent us from getting into the hallway to get to his door. So we had a pry bar because the SWAT officer that was with me was also a breacher. So we were able to take that pry bar and pull that L bracket off and open the door into the hallway where we see the suspect's door. Now, at this point, the suspect had shot through the door dozens of times down the hallway, and he also had a room service cart that he had placed in front of the other door. So he had 135, which was a suite to our left, and 134, which is an adjoining room. And in front of 134, he had a room service cart, and we could see wires going from the room service cart into the room. So, of course, with the chaos down below, so many people that we know are shot and dead, and then we see this cart with wires. Our whole team thought it was an explosive device waiting for us, especially coupled with him taking an L bracket to try and funnel us down that hallway.
Yeah, that's the first thing that comes to my mind, too. And I want people to understand it's almost a dual mindset. You got to eliminate the threat. But you don't want to endanger anybody else's life of subordinate officers at the same time. I'm sure that was going through your mind.
Well, that was the balance, and that was what I was, it was heavy on my mind, and I know Levi as a SWAT officer that was with me, we wanted to make the right decision. We didn't want to get people killed, but we also didn't mind sending people and us going into danger because we knew that's what we had to do to try and stop this. And like I said, the suspect had stopped shooting at this point, and we didn't know is he turned and waiting for us because there are cameras that he can see us. So we need to be able to get in there because we can't get medical down below to the victims until we get this room cleared out. So that was heavy on all of our minds. And also, again, like I said, that anxiety of, am I making the wrong call and going to get this entire team killed? And everyone's like, well, why wouldn't you go grab a bomb dog, which would have taken 30 minutes, or get a bomb squad, which would have taken an hour,
right,
for an entire SWAT team? All of those things, those are things that are running through, I know they were in my mind for sure.
Well, I ran through some of the similar things as a police sergeant in Baltimore, and the time it took to stage a SWAT team, it would take forever. And sometimes you just didn't have that luxury of time. You had to take action. When you forced the room, what was your role as a sergeant in K-9?
So what we did is I had a ballistic shield, so I had one K-9 officer shield the door. The SWAT officer, like I said, who's a breacher, hung an explosive breach on the suspect's door while I covered the secondary door. And as I got close to the cart, I could see that there was a camera on it. So I reached down and I flipped the camera so it's not facing us. Again, the whole time thinking this thing is probably going to explode, knowing that, well, okay, if it does, we're going to clear a path for the next team that's coming up here. Thankfully, it wasn't an explosive, so that didn't happen. So after we hang the breech, we step back into the stairwell and we detonate the breech. It's a positive breach, so we step into the hallway where we make entry into the room. I'm at the back of the team, SWAT officer up front, a couple officers. We make entry in the room and start to clear it out. Now it's a suite and it's pretty large, and it's kind of surreal. We go in the room, there's guns everywhere on the floor, shell casings, broken glass, and we had to, again, see if there's how many suspects there were. There are multiple suspects. At this point, we don't know. It's one suspect that had taken weeks to prepare. We're, again, responding to what's unfolding in front of us. So we clear out the room, find the suspect deceased on the ground with a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and make sure there's no other suspects. We do a secondary explosive breach on the connecting room that I mentioned, that room 134, and we do the same thing and clear that room out as well, where we just find more guns and more evidence of what happened.
We're going to take a short break on that note. We're talking with Josh Bitsko, retired Las Vegas Metro Police Captain, talking about the Mandalay Bay mass shooting, and he was involved on the scene. When we return, we'll talk a little bit more about that. He's authored the book Courage to Live, which you can find at Amazon. His website is bitskoconsulting.com. It's BITSKO consulting.com. This is the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back. Of all the radio stations in the United States, there are no other shows like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. And on Facebook, there's only one official page. Do a search on Facebook for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. And be sure to like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. Return our conversation with Josh Bitsko on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Josh is retired Las Vegas Metro Police Captain. He's authored the book, The Courage to Live. You can find it on Amazon, and also has a website, bitskoconsulting.com. It's BITSKO consulting.com. I got to ask you this, Josh. First of all, thank you for what you did that day and for all of your service, not just that part of it, but that's a pretty big deal. Sometimes, and I'm going to phrase this in form of a question, sometimes I really have to understand that people sometimes go through my head is like, yeah, you talk a big game, but you have no idea what I've been through. Do you ever find that you're changed by that and your response to people, negative or positive, as a result of that?
I will say that are there times that I've encountered people that are like, well, I would have done this and I would have done that. I'd say, but more often than not, the response is, wow, that was really heavy, or that was, very unique event that you responded to, and receive support, especially from the law enforcement community. So I try not to focus on the negativity when people are, being negative about that. And I'll just be candid with them. Well, yeah, you weren't there, so you don't understand parts of this. But at the same time, my whole job and goal now is to teach people about what to expect on events like this, or any critical incident for that matter.
And I think the teaching, a big part of that is self-awareness. And for me, to be a little more specific, I've found that my people skills have gotten worse over time. And it's not about a specific situation, but there are people, there are loudmouth guys who love to run their mouth. Yeah, I'll do this, I'll do that. And I'm thinking, yeah, you have no idea who you're dealing with and what I've been through. And you can't really scare me. One of my daughters got me a mug. She said, you can't scare me. I was a Baltimore police, and I have 2 daughters. So what are you going to throw at me? Your best shot. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. I mean, like I said, at the end of the day, we have a unique job in law enforcement, and we're surrounded by very type A personalities, and everybody has an opinion. But at the same time, I tend not to give a whole lot of attention to the noise. I have daughters, I have a family, I have sons, I have everything that I want in life now. But at the same time, if I just focus on the negativity, then it's going to eat me up. So I tend not to give that any of my energy when that happens. And
I've found, for me personally, that self-awareness thing, that I'm not going to voluntarily give control over my life to someone else. It's just not going to do it. And everybody's entitled to their opinion, but opinions are like, what, and everybody's got one and they all stink. And usually what they don't have is facts. And I appreciate what you went through, but I I can't help but think that not just you, but everybody from Las Vegas, Henderson, that wound up showing up at that situation, police, firefighters, paramedics, that they were somehow changed. I just can't. I don't know how you do it and not be changed.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Any kind of event like this, everybody that went up to that floor came down a different human. And more than 1,000 officers that responded to this event were changed just because the shocking and violent nature of an event like this, it has an impact on us. And so you have, in the course of a career in law enforcement, that cumulative effect of going on, seeing the worst side of humanity and fighting that battle to not let it make you negative. And then you have these, a couple of events that are acute that really have an impact on you. And, I'll tell you, it took me a while after this to finally start in therapy and start working through some of the things that I'd experienced. And this was a big one. I've talked quite a bit in therapy and with professionals about this event, trying to, regain that humanity and, live with joy and not just turn into a robot, because it's easier to be a robot sometimes than feel the whole of our experiences.
It is, and for me, I had to really get rid of the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. I'm not Superman. I'm not God. And I guess this is a question. Did you have any periods of thought in your mind where I should have done this and the outcome would have been different?
Well, still to this day. I mean, listen, if you go on anything of this magnitude, no critical incidents go perfect. If you are in policing and you are responding the best you can to somebody that had a lot of time to prepare a plan, you're responding to someone else's actions, you're never going to be perfect. And there's one thing is learning from mistakes, and another thing is not dwelling on them and let them eat you alive, because that's how you go down that rabbit hole of trying to rationalize and reliving everything you've been through and letting the guilt get a hold of you. But I made 100 mistakes that night, and I've tried to learn from them and also try and help other people learn from those same mistakes.
Well, it's a natural transition to what you're doing today. So you continued on. I can't remember what year this shooting was, but you had a long career after that, and you were sergeant and you retired as a captain. So you went from sergeant, lieutenant to captain.
Yeah, so I promoted a couple of times after the incident. I was a sergeant. I went to lieutenant, had a couple different jobs as a lieutenant. I was a captain. I was a captain over the Las Vegas Strip. I was a captain of our wellness bureau that we were forming. So I had to create a wellness bureau for the mental health of all of our employees, the 6,000 people at Las Vegas Metro. And so I had a long career, and I, at the same time, knowing that this event was weighing on me, but able to use that to, help people while I was with Metro, and then continued to do that into retirement through my company.
So before we get into your company, what you're doing today, when did you start seeking help with therapy? Was that during your career as a police officer, regardless of rank, or when you retired, or is it from then till now?
So I retired in 2024. In 2020, I started seeing a mental health professional. I started that therapeutic journey, as much as I hate saying that term.
I hate it too.
And I did,
but it's unavoidable. I said I hate it too, but it's unavoidable, and it's part of policing. You've got to be proactive about.
Yeah, and I had not only this, I had this event that obviously weighed heavy on me. I had a officer-involved shooting 6 weeks later with a murder suspect. I had lost a brother to suicide, lost a father to cancer, all in a very short period of time, and the weight got so heavy that so in 2020 I finally sat down with a mental health professional. I sat down with a therapist and started working on myself. But it's something that I still do to this day, and it's work. You just have to constantly be putting time and effort into your own mental health, just like we do our physical health.
That's right. I look at it this way, and not to get on my soapbox because we're almost out of time, I treat mental health the same way. Your brain is an organ of the body, just like the heart is. It does different roles, but if your thoughts are out of whack, your mood's out of whack, that's usually a sign that something is not right. And treat your mental health the same as your physical health, or very similar. And I used to think I should have control of my thoughts, or stop thinking like that. You shouldn't do that. You don't need to. And I need to learn tools of what to do when this came up.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there's times that you can control those thoughts, and there's other times you can't. You can't control how you feel, but you can always control how you respond to it.
That's right.
And if the first step should really be, seeking help and finding a professional that works with you and works for you, like is a good relationship, and then working on growing through that trauma and becoming stronger and processing through it, so you can again live your life.
So the book you wrote is The Courage to Live. Tell us about that book and why you wrote it.
Well, I wanted to create a blueprint for not just law enforcement, but for anybody that, experiences hard things and that has to make difficult decisions under stress. But also through that trauma, I don't want people to take that long road that I did for my own mental health. It took years and years after all of this stuff happening for me to finally get help. So in the book, I talk about the incident. I do go through a timeline, way more in depth than even we've talked about today. And then I have pictures from the scene that have never been released before. And ultimately then I get into, not just my journey, but proven tools and tactics to experience chaos, to regulate your emotions, to be able to seek the help that you need. It was a labor of love, and it really, it was even cathartic for me to put it down on paper. But with the ultimate goal to get people help to start that own journey and maybe not take as long as it took me.
And the book's called The Courage to Live. You can find it on Amazon very quickly, about 10 seconds. Your website is bitskoconsulting.com. What are you doing now, and can people contact you there?
Yeah, they can contact me through the website. There's a contact page. And ultimately, I travel the country and I teach law enforcement and businesses, how to have resilience, how to have courage, and also leadership.
Josh, I appreciate your service. I appreciate talking about a really, really tough situation and the book and all that you do, and for being guests on the show. All very much appreciated.
Well, thank you for having me. Like I said, my goal now at this point in my life is to have an impact, especially on our first responder community. The job gave a lot to me. It also had a huge impact on me. And if through that I can share my experiences and have an impact on the cops that are out working today, then that's my passion. And, it's fighting the good fight.
Of all the radio stations in the United States, there are no other shows like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. And on Facebook, there's only one official page. Do a search on Facebook for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, and be sure to like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. I'd like to thank our guests for coming on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. The Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show is a nationally syndicated weekly radio show broadcast on numerous AM and FM radio stations across the country. We're always adding more affiliate stations. If you enjoyed the podcast version of the show, which is always free, please do me a favor and tell a friend or two or three. I'll be back in just a few days with another episode of the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and podcast. Until then, this is John J. Wiley. See ya.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.